Canada is big. This is hardly surprising. It's really a grade school lesson in geography. And as Canadians, we often pride ourselves in our big open spaces and our untouched land. But where the distances can become a problem is in reaching out. In Canada, there are expanses of Catholic populations living in mission dioceses. These are regions where the population is too small or the economics too fragile for the people to support their own local church. One of these dioceses is Moosonee, located in northern Ontario, surrounding the James and Hudson Bays, with areas extending into northern Manitoba, Quebec, and Nunavut. With just 5,000 Catholics spread over 1.2 million square kilometers, Moosonee is just one example of a very diverse and sparsely populated Catholic community. They are, however, being encouraged and brought together in their faith by both mission priests and lay people, as well as the organization Catholic Missions in Canada. Hello and welcome to Catholic Focus. I'm Jillian Giordad, and today we're talking about Catholic missions in Canada. And to help me in that discussion, I have Father Rodrigue Vezina, who is an oblate missionary priest who's been in the Diocese of Moosonee for 45 years now, and was most recently awarded the Catholic Missions in Canada St. Joseph Award, which honors missionaries doing particularly good work in their faith communities. So welcome, Father Vezina.
Thank you.
So I guess to begin with, when we hear about missions, we often think overseas or we think third world countries, but the reality is that there are missions right here in Canada. Can you tell me a bit about them to start with? Where are they?
Well, they're all over northern Canada, and where I'm working, that's northern Ontario, and in James Bay and Hudson Bay, that's northern part of the province of Ontario. That's where I'm working, and we have 18 missions in our diocese. Our diocese is about twice the size of France, eh?
Twice the size of France.
But the population is 25,000, and out of there we have 5,000 Catholics, and in all these different villages there. Eh?
Right.
But to reach them, the only way is by plane, because there is no road there. Even where Bishop was staying in Moosonee, there is no road to reach him, or to reach the outside world, or to reach any of the missions. You have to travel by plane there.
So you're located in a town called Attawapiskat. That's about 1,700 people, but then there are extending villages and towns beyond that you would also travel to.
Yeah, I go to a village further north in Piwanuk. It is on the Hudson Bay. That's more 200 miles further north of Attawapiskat. I go there, say, 1 week in a month. Okay. The rest of the time I'm stationed at Attawapiskat, because that other village, Piwanuk, is about 225 people only, a small village. Okay. But people are still living there. They have their own school, they have their own church. They have been flooded in 1986. All the houses have been destroyed, and then they decided to rebuild, but further up the river, 18 miles up the river.
Okay. So those are, what you're talking about there, 200 miles away from from another village, from where you are as a priest, a flood that forced them to move their town. Those are conditions that aren't recognizable to many urban dioceses. So how does the church also differ? How does their understanding and the reality of their faith differ from what we might experience here in Toronto?
Well, they do accept that everything is happened like this. For example, there was a flood there. They say, okay, now we have to accept the situation as it is, and since they asked the government to help, they said we have now to rebuild in a place where it's more secure, and that's why they decide to build further up the river there. Right. And on account of that, it kind of renewed their faith, and since they built a new village there, the new church, like a wigwam, like the old style, where they were living in the tents in the bush there, eh? And every time I go there, once a month there, the church is full. People come very much. Eh? Plus, we do have baptism that occasion. Then we have First Communion once a year. Then the bishop is going to go at the beginning of June there for confirmation there. So we have been preparing. Also, we have a sister in Moosonee working with the bishop. She's in charge of development and faith in the diocese. Then she does come and help in all the villages. She come help also in Piwanuk there.
And so you mentioned that their church is built in replica of a wigwam. So that obviously is a bit of their culture that they're bringing into the Catholic faith. Are there other ways that they're combining and merging those two, and that's helping them to celebrate?
Well, we do have, especially in Attawapiskat, once in a while we do have, for example, a celebration there, for example, Remembrance Day, They do have a drumming also, plus we have the mass and so on. We name all these people because there were some of these native people who went to the First World War, 1914. They went there. Most of them came back, some of them died over there, but not in the war, but helping them behind there. But every year there's a celebration for that. Yeah. Big celebration, especially in Rodrigue, a big celebration for that. People remember them, want to thank them, and so on. And also to teach also the young people there, see what their fathers, their grandfathers did, how they give their life for them.
Exactly. Yeah. But also the other celebrations you would have within the church, weddings, First Communion, confirmation. Do you bring the culture, their native culture, into those celebrations as well?
Sometimes it does happen. Depends of the couples, Some couples want it, some couples do not want it. That's why we just go at the point the people are, and not to force anything on them, but if they bring it in. It happened once in Pewanok. There was a wedding there, and there had been some drumming there, right? And the people wanted it, okay, that's fine. It's not opposed to that because that's part of their culture, and that thing doesn't go against God, against Jesus, against Christianity, see?
So these are two churches that we're talking about in two villages that are separated by about 250 miles. But the diocese as a whole is 1.2 million square kilometers. There's 5,000 Catholics, as you said. And there are how many priests in that area?
We have 4 priests,
4 priests.
Plus a bishop.
So how do you ensure that you're reaching out to all people and that you are attracting everyone to church and that they have the opportunity to experience the church and celebrate their Catholic faith? Like
we do have in the western part of the diocese, among the archbishops, a lay person who's kind of in charge of all these communities there. He goes around every month, he goes around this. And plus he's responsible to find among these people, see some responsible for every Sunday to all the meetings. Sometimes even during the weekdays, they will have a prayer meeting, holding, and so on, and give communion. Our lay person there, he has a family, and they paid for all his family, his wife and his 3 children, to go to Fort Hope for the celebration of the Easter Vigil there. They wanted to have the whole family there.
Can you tell me a bit about the people that you're serving? How are they responding to the work that's being done? And how are they, for example, in Pewanok, where they would only see you once a month, what do they do during the remainder of that time to come together as a church?
Every Sunday, they meet just the same. Every Sunday, we have a leader there. Then he goes and ring the bell and so on and warm up the church. And then he does the reading. We have also people to do the reading. And also, me, when I am at Rodrigue, I send my homily by fax. And then he delivers the homily there in Pewanok. Then that way we keep in communion with this community. And the community also keep in communion with the priest there, and so on.
So one of the other ways that you might be receiving help, I understand, is through Catholic missions in Canada. Can you give me an idea of who they are exactly and how you're receiving help from them?
Especially like at Rodrigue, we have to switch from oil to electricity because oil was getting very expensive, plus there was so dangerous. There was a spill, to dig and very expensive. Then our administrator decided this is better now because also this reservoir, we needed to have a double wall reservoir. It would be cheaper to switch to electricity than to try to buy a new reservoir.
So these funds and this assistance is coming from Catholic missions?
Exactly, because and at Rodrigue we don't have enough income for the connection that we do have, say, every Sunday therefore for that.
So they're providing some monetary resources. Do they also provide any sort of spiritual resources that can assist you?
For example, the books we need to buy for confirmation, preparation for First Communion and so on. So they will help us for that and so on.
Well, to give us a better understanding of some of the activities of Catholic missions in Canada, we had the opportunity to visit their office here in the Archdiocese of Toronto, and we'll bring you this segment.
I'm Father Philip Kennedy, priest of the Archdiocese of Toronto, and recently I've been appointed the President and CEO of Catholic Missions in Canada. Catholic Missions in Canada is a wonderful way of gathering funds to help out the spread of the gospel throughout Canada, especially in the remote regions. It began almost 100 years ago with Archbishop McAvey and Father Alfred Burke and several other people who saw the need to support the more remote missions in Canada. Well, as Canada developed, we still had many remote places, and the missions were farther flung and still thriving. So over this 100 years, we still need a great support for our missions. So this Catholic Missions in Canada has developed. We have about 26 dioceses in Canada that could be called mission dioceses. These are dioceses that really need to be supported by the more comfortable, maybe we should say more affluent dioceses of the country, and dioceses that are able to reach out. Most of them are in the far north, but throughout the whole length and breadth of Canada, we have dioceses that can't exist in all their missions without the support of the people of the Catholic Church in Canada. Everything works through the bishop, because every one of these dioceses has a bishop who has a handle on the needs and the requirements for the evangelization, the continuation of the growth of the diocese, the growth of the Word of God. So sometimes it's material things like fixing the furnace in a church, fireproofing buildings, making sure that things are safe. Sometimes it has to do with supplying catechetical materials for children and the catechists. When I was working up in the near north, the Diocese of Thunder Bay, the bishop at the time asked me to go up to the town of Armstrong to do a funeral. I left on December the 1st of that year. So I left thinking that was a wonderful day for a drive. About 10 kilometers out of the town of Armstrong, it was like someone had drawn a white line, and there was the snow, and you were coming into a big blanket of snow. And of course there had been no traffic, no plowing or anything like that. So just as I was coming down the hill into the town, I did a 360 with the pickup I was driving, and then once again, and I landed just faced backwards from where I should go, but the vehicle was all right, and I was all right, just a little shaken up. And then once I arrived in the town, the sisters that were there, 2 sisters of St. Martha of Prince Edward Island, had already done the work of comforting the parents who had lost a little baby and all the family. They had done all the work of preparing for the funeral. The church was prepared. The whole town was prepared to participate in this funeral. And then when I came in, it was just a matter of being present and able to bring the presence of Jesus Christ to celebrate the Mass. 2 minutes before we were supposed to start, it was about like 10 o'clock in the morning, some of the gentlemen asked if they could go to confession. I said, certainly. Well, then everybody wanted to go to confession. So I was just wondering, coming from a city, we usually like to start our 10 o'clock Masses and funerals on time, but I just said to myself, well, is it going to matter if people wait a little longer? So the Mass didn't start till 11, and it didn't seem to bother anybody waiting around. So those are 3 things that you encounter as a missionary in the North. First of all, the natural elements. Secondly, the great work of lay people who are already working and preparing the way for evangelization and continuing the work of evangelization. And thirdly, coming in and being able to improvise, to bear the word of God to people on their own terms. I think Catholic Canadians are very well aware of the need of the spread of the gospel, and perhaps for some of them foreign missions is what first comes to mind. But I think Catholics also have a good idea that there are many needs right in our own country. And the North is not that far away, and the far north, the far east, far west, it's not that very far away from those who are hearing us right now. And so we're so pleased to be able to use our resources to assist the spread of the gospel in that way.
So Father Vezina, what do you think is the Canadian understanding of missions? I think, like I mentioned before, everyone thinks overseas or third world countries, but what do you think Canadians think of the missions that we have here in Canada?
Well, that's a good thing that they have newspapers, they have a magazine that make people aware that there's missions in Canada. It's not that far away, like in James Bay, it's not that far, maybe 1,000 miles north of Toronto only. And then we have very missions territory there. That we travel only by, as I mentioned before, just by plane. There's no roads, there's Muskeg and already mission territory there. And native people, yeah.
And do you think people realize that or are beginning to understand that, have a better understanding of that, and are better supporting the missions than they were, say, 45 years ago when you first started?
Well, I think people are getting more aware that with all this happening, then also there's in newspapers, people getting flooded, for example, in Kashichuan. That's almost no Catholics there. That's mostly an Anglican and Pentecostal community. But that's inside the Diocese of Moosonee. There's so much in the news and the CBC TV and also in the newspapers, and people began to realize, well, there are some native people in Canada and so on.
What are some of the challenges and struggles that you are seeing there in the diocese?
In the diocese, well, try to, especially with the youth, to get in contact with the youth, have a kind of a youth ministry there, to have them involved in the church there. We do have some that are involved, but we'd like to have more to be really much more involved there. Yeah.
And then conversely, some of the successes that you've seen in your 45 years.
Well, it was nice. We have some young people there. Now I've been teaching religion in school. They are catechists, helping to prepare for First Communion, for confirmation, and so on. Helping, for example, marriage preparation, these courses, and so on. See, now they're getting older. I baptized them. I gave them First Communion. Bishop came for their confirmation. Then I blessed their marriage and so on. And I baptized all their children and so on.
So you've been involved in their lives for a very long time. You're very much a part of their lives now. What was the very beginning for you? How did you receive this call? I understand that as a priest, you've only been in the Diocese of Moosonee. So what was it about this place that attracted you, or the mission work that attracted you?
Well, when I arrived, for example, at Wabascat, before at Wabascat, I went 12 years among the Ojibwe. But when I arrived in Wabascat, see, there was a priest there since 1905. See, I would just continue the same tradition there. I was accepted there, just continue, like be a priest. I'd been there for forever almost there, see? There was another priest, but the same.
The same for them?
Yeah.
And what about for you? Why did you want to go there to begin with? What drew you there?
Well, when we finished our studies, our spiritual asked us where we would like to go. My first choice was South America. Second choice was in Canadian missions, not in Canada. Third one was to be in the parish and down south. But since there was a need in the northern Canada, well, they sent me up north. I says, okay, that's one of my choice, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. I began to learn more English. Then, because I'm coming from Quebec, I didn't know much of it. And then I studied the Ojibwe language. I've been there 12 years at first there. Then they sent me to Wabascat. Then I learned the Cree language. And so on.
So where will you go next?
I go next.
What next language is there for you? So also in the time there, you've been in Wabascat for how many years now?
Now I've been here 35 years.
35 years. Yeah. And I understand that you've begun a television ministry there.
Right.
Can you tell me a bit more?
Okay. When I arrived there in 1973, there was a wire connecting the church to the hospital, because the old people there, they wanted to be part of the praying community there. And one day the wire broke. Then we decided, might as well improve it. And then we got till somebody came to help us to install, say, a television or transmitter and so on. And then at the hospital, they can also see the priest saying the mass and so on, all the ceremonies in the church, seeing the people and so on, their children, their relatives praying together, right? And so on. And then, well, I've been there a year and a half before CBC got in, and we were showing also during the day, we have all kind of Bible movies, and people going up trapping there and hunting. They took some movies, and when we go, for example, goose hunting, we still have these movies. We still show them. They ask for them. They want to see that.
So it's 24-hour programming.
That's a 24-hour program. Yeah.
And so,
like in the morning, we have the morning prayers, 7:30 to 8. Then after that, we have a little Bible study, about 15-20 minutes, and then after we announce the intention of the mass, then the anniversary of the death of the people, the anniversary of the marriage, the anniversary of the birth of the people, and so on, of the weddings, whatever, and so on. and also the time, the day, and how cold it is outside. If we don't, right away the phone rings and says,
How cold is
how
it?
cold it is outside.
You have your own weather network.
Yeah,
But how have you seen them develop in their Catholic faith by having a tool like that they can refer to, they can see you? They don't necessarily have to, they may not be in the church, but they can still pray with you in their home.
That's right. They can do that every day, especially on Sunday. That's what they tell us. Sometimes they come for preparation for baptism. They say, we don't see you too much in church, but I listen to you on television.
Yeah. Are there other projects that you've been working on and seeing the people grow in? Obviously the television ministry, but I also understand that they've named their high school after you. So what would have led to that?
Well, they got together one evening, when the school board, I should say, and they said they had the J.R. Nakuchi was the elementary school, and it was named by the first chief of the Atawaskat. Mm-hmm. And then now they have the high school, they want to have their own name. There are different names of a native person was teaching, from Atawaskat was teaching there, but she died accidentally. And my name was on the list. I was not part of there. Just next morning they called me, says, well, we voted and your name was chosen. So do you accept? Well, I told them, I said, usually we wait until somebody dies before they name a school by the name. And so if they want to do it, okay. If they won't, and that's the way that happened there.
So your work and your time spent with them is obviously appreciated and respected.
Yeah, for sure. And I know everybody in town,
yeah.
See, and plus with the television, they even if you don't see them in their houses so that often, but they see us on television,
What sort of hopes and dreams and goals do you have for this community in the next few years, in the next 45 more years?
Yeah, that more and more that they take over as much possible, like baptismal preparation and so on, marriage preparation and all these things there. And right now, see, we have 2 people giving communion after Mass on Sunday to different parts of town, like the village or the church, kind of in the middle of the village. One goes one part of the village, and one goes the other end of the village, give communion to these elders or these old people who cannot come to church there. So, see, that's the idea. We want to get involved
to keep that
more
going.
and more. Yeah, keep them going there.
And do you see that there's an interest in other young priests that they would want to come to a diocese like Moosonee, a mission diocese, and to continue the work that's started there?
Well, it's down south they're short of priests, and that's why it's very difficult to get some to come up north. We do have, for example, for Easter, for example, to go to people who always want to have a priest there for this celebration, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. Usually we have a priest who studies in St. Paul University. Usually it's a priest from Asia or Africa will come up for that week there. But we've been unable to get somebody from, say, the diocese down south because themselves they're short of priests.
Exactly. And no doubt the work looks daunting in an area that's as big as 2 sizes of France, 2 times the size of France.
That's it, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come and meet with us and to share your stories of the Diocese of Moosonee. We look forward to talking with you again sometime and learning more about the television ministry and some of the other projects you may have on the go. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of Catholic Focus. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to email us at focus@saltandlighttv.org. Thanks again for joining us.